JKB back with another episode.
And today I'm reviewing Assassin's Creed Odyssey on the show, thanking Ubisoft for sending over the review copy. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the 11th major game in the series and the 20th overall. That being said, how could Ubisoft Quebec make my favorite game in the series? That's easy to answer. Take everything that never worked out of the game and focus in on what worked and make it even better. That's Odyssey's main goal. This time around, the game is set in 431 BCE, and it includes some of the best writing to date. As usual, I do not want to spoil any of the story because that's not my job. I'm here to tell you if you should spend the money to experience this story, and it's safe to say that it's definitely worth playing. If you're into Greek mythology, you'll be taken into a fictional open world game of your dreams, and if you're not into Greek mythology, you'll be taken into a world that won't exactly go out of its way to teach you about the history of the time, but it will leave you feeling very fulfilled. The game tosses you right into a battle as you play as King Leonidas, and as soon as you take control of the king, you'll realize something is a little different here. There's three major gameplay elements that I want to focus in on. And the first is the ability bar that makes combat the best it's ever been in an Assassin's Creed game. As you take down enemies in the game, you'll gain ability, which can be spent on special skills that are assigned to the buttons of your choice. These special skills are unlocked using ability points, which you gain by collecting XP during your adventure. I unlocked one called multi-shot, which let me target up to 4 enemies at the same time and shoot an arrow that dealt 150% more hunter damage on each of the targets. I assigned it to the Y button on my Xbox One X controller and used these abilities by holding down the left trigger and hitting the button which corresponds with that ability. These abilities are what kept combat very interesting because I would open up a new one every 4 to 5 hours in the game, and not only be able to use it on its own, but also to be able to use whichever one I wanted as long as I had my ability bar full. Using one of them will spend one section of the ability bar. When you combine these moves with your basic moves, you start to see that Ubisoft is doing its best to get the combat to a level that's going to keep you interested the whole way through the game, no matter how far you get into it. I should also point out that these ability attacks are also broken up into 2 categories. You have a ranged attack and a melee attack. As for the attacks that are up close and personal, I can confirm that the famous "This is Sparta" kick is in the game, and when you kick your first enemy off of a mountain, you'll be in love with the combat. The second major gameplay element is the RPG dialogue options. These led me on branching quests that made me feel like I had control over the story, but at other times I was forced into making tough decisions, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be completely evil or not, because the game also has something really cool called the mercenary system. This is where mercenaries will chase after you after you've committed a bunch of crimes like stealing from NPCs or just being overall evil by murdering random people. You'll be able to either face down these mercenaries, as they usually are a level or 2 above you, or you can pay them off to lower your wanted level. This feature is fucking amazing. I was in the middle of a mission, out of nowhere this guy shows up walking around the village, and I thought, he seems out of place. That's really strange. So I got onto the roof of a small house and I watched him walking around. I realized really quickly he was looking for me. I shot an arrow down into the side of his leg and he looked up right at my direction and said something on the lines of, "I've come for your head." I'm so in love with this feature because you'll never know when you'll run into one of these people who randomly want to murder you. That's why I say you play this game completely evil. Trust me. It'll make it much more enjoyable if you're evil. The third gameplay feature that's new here is the ability to turn hand-holding off. This simply means that there'll be an unguided quest log without major markers showing up on the map or around you during gameplay. The way this works is that you'll have on-screen hints or slight directions from some of the town folk saying that there's a town just north of the chicken hut on the Olive Island. You'll be able to see the names of towns on the map once you've already been to them, or you'll have to search the map and reveal them. This makes the game more of a challenge. Gone are the days where you just simply walk to the next mission because the game displays the marker exactly where to go in front of you. Now you really need to figure out exactly where everything is, and along the way you'll come across so many things to do and discover. It's brilliant, and I hope this stays in all of the future games. I should also point out there's a day and night cycle with dynamic weather, so you can be out on your boat and then suddenly be hit by a gigantic storm, or you could be in the middle of a mission and fog will randomly just appear in the sky and you'll say, oh god, here comes the rain. I should also point out that your health is automatically regained when you're in hiding, so this is something that is super important to know once you start the game. As we all know, these games usually take a lot from the past games and follow the same formula, so a lot of people might say, well, this is repetitive, but this felt like a little bit of a different experience because of the RPG elements. There's some of the best dialogue I've ever heard in an Assassin's Creed game in this game. The tone of the game is also something I need to talk about because not many games can take this serious moment that really works in this game, but also introduce a sense of humor that the game just throws at you, and it gets away with it. At the start of the game, you'll be able to pick between the two genders. I picked Cassandra, who's a mix between Indiana Jones and Han Solo, but that's depending on how you play the game and make the choices from her character's dialogue. The dialogue options are what will form her, because you have so many choices to make. Do you want to help these people for free? Do you even care about the people you just ran into? Do you want to kill them all and steal their money? Do you want to have sex with this girl standing in front of you? You'll be faced with these questions almost every single time you talk to somebody during a mission in the game. I found it extremely hard to decide if I wanted to be pure evil or an angel. That's what's so good about this game. You'll have to go back and play it for a second time to see the different choices. There's so much content in this game that it's to the point of how am I going to be able to play anything else? And that's a good thing, because there's a lot of enjoyment here to keep you playing. There's one small scene that I'm going to tell you about right now. I wouldn't get into details, but let's just say there's a famous character that has one eye in Greek mythology, and in this game he still has his one eye, but he keeps a priceless stone in the other eye socket, which is missing, because, well, it looks cool. You end up stealing his eye, and in one of the best scenes I've seen in an Assassin's Creed game, you'll be face to face with this character, and he will demand that you give him back his stone eye. Now this is where Cassandra says, sure, you can have the eye back, as she lifts the tail of a sheep as it passes by and shoves the eye up the ass of the sheep and says, go get it. And in that, you now know the tone of this game. The map is absolutely huge. It's broken down into what looks like 50% water and 50% land. So of course, you have the return of naval combat. The boats here are designed to smash into each other. There's also a whole ship upgrade system in place that'll let you upgrade everything on the ship, including your crew. You'll be able to find better crew and hire them to work on the ship as you progress through the game. The ship combat feels exactly the same as it did in Black Flag, and that's absolutely a good thing. There's a ton of random details that the team really put into the open water. One example is the blood in the water itself. When you take down an enemy ship, you'll start to see the water turn red with blood all over the place. Well, that's cool, right? You'll want to jump over to the enemy ship and loot all of the fallen enemies and look for anything that's kind of interesting, worth picking up. The one thing you won't realize is that the blood in the water is attracting sharks, and these sharks will attack anything that's in the water. I realized this as I was standing on the edge of my boat looking at an enemy as he tried to kick his way through the water and back onto our boat. This is when I realized I can't believe that the sharks are attracted to the water, but not only that, they will jump right at anybody who enters the water around the blood. It scared the absolute shit out of me, and it was fucking amazing. I should also bring up the gear system, which expands the RPG elements. You'll be able to switch out your gear as you find it during your adventure, but your gear can also be upgraded at the blacksmiths in each of the town. All of the rare gear seems to have special bonuses on them, such as more damage with a sword or better chance of a critical hit. I was constantly looking at my inventory to see if I picked up a better sword. Now, for me personally, I love using swords in the game. Some of you might like the bow and arrow more, so you want to tune your character in that direction. You know, in past Ubisoft games, when you would release a prisoner from some enemy camp, where they usually just run off into the surrounding area and that's considered saving them? Well, that's not how it works in this game. I found myself having to escort them out of the situation to be rewarded, or they will get tracked down and killed by an enemy. You'll be able to free them after you've killed all the enemies in an area, but it seems that random enemies will also just show up and attack them at times. So I never felt safe. Once you escort them safely, you'll be able to get back into the RPG dialogue options, and you can still act like a complete ass to these people and just steal money off of them, or even just kill them. It's absolutely insane how much you can do when it comes to the RPG elements. This game is not perfect. The combat is the best it's ever been, and you'll feel that right off the bat, but you will run into moments where the camera will limit the fighting area, and you'll get stuck in a corner just swinging away. The camera can be a little frustrating at times because I think maybe it's a little too close to the main character. There's moments during exploration where you're in these massive caves that are all around the map where I just wish you could zoom out a little. The game doesn't take itself completely seriously. However, there was a moment within the first 6 hours where I teared up. Maybe that's because I can relate to having a shitty parent, but it still got me. I think some people will complain that the balance between the serious side and the goofy side isn't exactly perfect, and you know what? Sure, it's not perfect, but it's a video game. There's a ton of things in the game that break logic, but what's the fucking point of playing a video game if you're gonna say, well, wait a second, how did my horse get to this island in the middle of the water? Well, the answer is, it's a video game. I can accept that. There's also one ability that lets you take control of your arrows, and yes, you'll be able to fly your arrows in the game. Does this make any sense? Well, kind of. I mean, maybe you have the blood of a god in you, but maybe it's just a video game. These aren't negatives in my opinion. I'm just bringing them up because some people may be pissed off that your horse can apparently swim a great distance off screen, but maybe he's a god, I don't know. He just shows up just like the horse does in The Witcher. He's there if you need him. You can also pick your horse, and there's 3 to pick from at the start of the game. As you'll discover in new towns, you also come across different types of horses, and yes, of course, you can change the skin on your horse. And I don't mean like literally, because that would be gross. I mean like you can put different saddles on him and he looks cool. You know, there's one negative that I have to bring up, and that's the current day story. You know, Ubisoft, please stop. We don't want it in the game. The way the first current day scene is directed is beyond lazy and pointless. It doesn't feel like it belongs in the game. I don't know about you guys, but how many of you really like dealing with the future in these games? These games are about playing in the past. It's almost like this scene at the beginning of the game is right out of a mobile game, so please somebody at Ubisoft, go make a mobile game with a touchscreen ability and just call it Current Day Assassin's Creed Mobile, where you touch the screen every time somebody, goes back in time and presents you with a screen of text and voiceover for 10 minutes. And once that's all done, you'll get bored and go back to watching paint dry in your kitchen that's freshly been painted just yesterday. Ubisoft, please stop. Nobody cares about that anymore. I don't. Overall, it's clear to me that Ubisoft has been studying one of the best RPGs ever made, and that's The Witcher 3. There's a lot in common with that game here, and it's okay because they've taken the really good parts. The world is always alive when it's meant to be. There's towns with tons of characters all saying something interesting. There's a ton of side missions and people you'll want to help as you get deeper into the story. There's caves all around the world where you collect these rocks and stones that you use to upgrade your weapons. And these caves sometimes can only be found by going underwater, which again is pretty cool if you're into water. And if you're not, well, good luck with that. The story is simple, yet the gameplay system in place that holds the game together really is the RPG dialogue system that makes it so absolutely interesting to talk to somebody in the game. One thing that's kind of cool about the game is that there's this major war happening between two sides, and you can kind of choose which side you want to go on by joining in on some of the missions. There's a deep system at play behind the scenes here, which is tied into the story. I don't want to give anything away with that, but I'll say it kept me excited to keep playing the game. The tone of the game is exactly where I want it to be. I haven't had this much fun with Assassin's Creed ever. The main character that I picked is basically a bounty hunter from Star Wars. There's one last thing I want to bring up before I give this game a score, and that's the Helix credits, which are basically used as real-world money to let you unlock tons of things in the game. Here's the deal with this. I couldn't find out in time if any of the gear was locked behind a paywall or not. I can understand the season pass, but the amount of stuff that is available to buy in the store with having to spend real-world money is actually unbelievable. There's also so many editions of this game that it's getting to the point where I finally had to address it in one of my videos. I do understand why you'd want to give the gamers so many choice. That's fine. I just think this could be done in an easier and less confusing way, so I'm going to give them a little pushback on this because I don't think one gamer out there really wants to deal with this nonsense. Just give us one version of the game, and if you really like the game, Ubisoft is offering a season's pass, and you can go out there and get it if you love it. And of course, offer an Ultimate Edition with, the usual figure, art book, and the season's pass, and that's it. Give us an option. 2 versions, not 99 million versions of the game. Just give us 2, please. Now that's obviously not going to affect the score, just wanted to bring it up. Here's where I want to give a big round of applause to the art direction of the game. This is the best looking Assassin's Creed game in the series to date, and it has a lot to do with the open world, the design of all of these aspects, all of these assets, the textures to the lighting, right down to the blades of grass. Everything looks like it was put there with passion. There are some parts of the game that I feel were a little rushed, like I said. Everything in the current day, like 2018 in the setting of the game, I don't care about it, and it's the worst writing and it's just horribly directed. But once you get into the actual game, you can see the different teams at play here, and they all come together to create something that I consider to be special. I'm gonna give Assassin's Creed Odyssey a 9 out of 10. This game is a must-play for fans of the series and a must-own for anybody who likes anything that comes close to The Witcher 3, because they've done things in this game that remind me of The Witcher 3 and Breath of the Wild. And saying that, is it original? Well, I mean, really, what game isn't taking from another these days? And if it's not broken, don't fix it. A good artist steals, as they say, and Ubisoft has taken, I'm gonna use that word, a lot of the best elements of RPG out there and put them finally into Assassin's Creed, but also introduced new things that are original that you'll just have to check out for yourself. If you enjoyed my review for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, please share it with one of your friends and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next episode of JKB, which will probably be Mega Man 11.